What's up, guys? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall markets. I'm going to break down why tomorrow is going to be a very important day as we have the FOMC meeting and Jerome Powell giving a speech. Not to mention what's going on with President Trump as he said some very important things about his policies. He also is saying he's going to make a very, very big announcement soon, so I'll talk about that. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. Moomoo is an amazing global brokerage account that consists of many exclusive offers. If you sign up and deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. Deposits $2,000, you're guaranteed 25 in total. And deposit $5,000, you're guaranteed 60 free stocks. The offer ends on June 3rd. It ends very, very soon, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with this market. So as far as Tesla's going, I just want to mention that right now we are still range bound. I did mention to you all I was expecting a test of this like 272 area near the 50 EMA, and I said to watch and see if Tesla bounces. So far, we're trying to bounce here, and I do think there is some potential to go a bit higher, but then I do see a lot of volatility coming because of FOMC. So I'm going to break down how this may affect Tesla. As of right now, all Tesla is doing is we're going back and forth. As we hit 292, we tend to reject. As we hit this 272 to 275 area, we like to bounce. And this is all Tesla is doing for now. What else is good about this? There is some good news about this, and that's the fact that despite the fact that we're getting all this bad news, right? All over the news, they're saying Tesla sales are failing in Europe. Tesla's saying its brand being very damaged. You guys can see the sales in these European countries are down 36% in Spain on a year-over-year basis for the month of April based off registrations. They're down 46% in Germany. They're down 62% in the UK, and the list goes on. The sales are down quite a bit. But despite that, Tesla only dipped to 272, which is where we were before, and we started to bounce off that. So we're showing some resilience and we're doing a good job. So with that being said, what's going to be affecting Tesla? What's going to cause Tesla to either break out or get a rug pull? The answer is going to be FOMC. So I'll break down some more details about that. Many analysts think that Tesla is still going to maintain its level. The price price ratio is going down a bit, so I just want to note that Tesla is showing some weakness. And then Wednesdays are green only about 48% of the time for Tesla historically, so it's not the strongest of days. But what's going to matter more is going to be what happens with FOMC. The market's very flat right now, getting ready for it as we saw a lot of consolidation. But the way it's going to go tomorrow is like this. Tomorrow is going to be Wednesday, May 7th, 2025. May 7th, excuse me. That's very important because in the morning, there's not really much data coming out, so I do see some consolidation coming to the markets. The market does look like it wants to push a bit from here, so it might go a little higher before it consolidates. But then at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the interest rate decision coming out. This may cause a little bit of volatility. We may get a little bit of a pop here or there. But keep in mind, there's actually a 97.8% chance the Fed's going to keep rates the same based off what the bonds market is pricing in. So that tells us that right now, we're not really expecting it to be that crazy. We are expecting them to keep rates the same. But then at 2:30 p.m., that's 30 minutes after the decision comes out, we have what's known as the Fed press conference. This is when you have the big guy, Jerome Powell, giving his speech. So I do expect a lot of volatility at 2:30 p.m., most likely, based off what Jerome Powell is going to be saying. Now, we know the Fed's going to keep rates the same, most likely. There's a 97.8% chance they do. But what matters is, what is Jerome Powell going to say about the Fed's balance sheet? Is the Fed going to be trying to ease up on policy a bit more? What's going to happen with inflation and President Trump's tariff policies? How will this affect the Fed overall? So make sure you guys keep all of that in mind. Jerome Powell is going to give a speech causing lots of volatility, and it's going to be very, very impactful for the markets. So please be ready for that. Honestly, I'm not really a fortune teller. I don't know exactly what Jerome Powell will say word for word, so I can't make promises. Will he cause some fear about inflation going up again because of the tariffs, or will he talk about a potential cuts that could be coming? Both of those things are very possible. So anything could happen, and that's why there's a little bit of unpredictability about that. You want to be very patient to see what the big guy Jerome Powell causes. On top of this, please note that for Wednesday, we have FOMC, and then Thursday, Friday, or Monday, we have something else that's very big that's coming out, and that involves President Trump, who just made a huge announcement. So he is saying that he's going to be making a very, very big announcement ahead of his trip to the Middle East very, very soon. Let me give you guys some details about this. So President Trump said a very, very big announcement is coming ahead of his trip to the Middle East. He also planned to visit to Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and also Qatar in the upcoming days. We're going to have a very, very big announcement to make, like as big as it gets, is what President Trump is saying. He also told reporters that as he's meeting with Canada's new Prime Minister, Mark Carney. They said that they won't tell anyone on what, and it's going to be very positive. So President Trump said that the announcement is going to be really, really positive, and that the announcement is going to be made either on Thursday or Friday or Monday before we leave. He said it's going to be one of the most important announcements that have been made in many years about a certain subject, very important subject. So you'll all be there. So President Trump is saying it's going to be very, very big, one of the biggest announcements in years about a particular subject. And he said it's going to be very positive. So as a reminder, okay, Wednesday, we have FOMC, then either on Thursday, Friday, or Monday. We don't know exactly when it's going to be, but one of those 3 days, President Trump will be making this huge announcement. He said it's going to be very positive. So this could be huge, guys. I would not take this lightly. President Trump can cause so much volatility in the markets. So make sure you're ready for this just to be safe. On top of this, there was other things that President Trump said. I want to actually read some of his quotes in just a second. There's also been a lot of talk from the Treasury Secretary about how the U.S. is going to negotiate with China, and President Trump could be meeting some Chinese officials soon. So what else is President Trump saying? I actually have his transcript right here. I'm going to read what he's saying, then I'll talk about some more news. So President Trump basically said that as time goes on, I look forward to meeting with Mark Carney. I also look forward to meeting with the new prime minister, and that I care about one simple truth, and that is getting things together. He also said that I am looking forward to meeting him, and we don't need their cars. So he's talking about Canada. Trump is saying we don't need Canadian cars, we don't need their energy, we don't need their lumber, we don't need anything they have other than friendships. That's what President Trump is arguing. He's saying we don't need anything. Then he started to say that we need to see a potential deal in the future, and that it's going to be very, very huge. On top of this, he was talking about how he wants to see more improvements with the way Russia and Ukraine are negotiating. And then he was talking about how he has a lot in common with Canada's prime minister. He went on about how he has a very, very positive announcement coming on Thursday, Friday, or Monday. He went on about that, like I said before his trip to the Middle East, he wants to make the announcement. So it's either going to be on Thursday, Friday, or Monday. He's saying that it will be before Monday now. That's what he's saying once again. And then he's saying we would love to have a trade deal with Canada. We may be renegotiating the USMCA. It's actually very effective, and we want to be friends with Canada. That's what President Trump is saying. Then he said and went on about how he thinks that we're going to be working together to look for opportunities with the US and Canada, and that we have a good friendship. So he went on about that. He started talking about China, about how they want to meet with us. He's saying that the US and China want to meet up. And then he said, by not trading with China, we're losing nothing. We're not losing anything by not trading with China. That's what President Trump said. And he said that China's economy is suffering from a lack of U.S. trade. He also said that the U.S. deficit with China is turning due to the tariffs, and that the Chinese ships are turning back in the Pacific Ocean. He also said that there's going to be a big announcement, but it does not necessarily have to be just about trade, so it may or may not be about trade. And besides that, he went on about how there's going to be lots of trade deals coming. He said that the US is a super luxury store, and that many countries look up to the US. He said that India has agreed to drop tariffs, and that we're going to see a lot of deals. So he's hinting deals with India and all these different countries. So with that being said, guys, President Trump is saying the same things. He's going to be making lots of deals, potentially with India, South Korea, Japan, and maybe even China in the future. And he has a very important announcement coming on Thursday, Friday, or Monday. So please keep that in mind and mark your calendars. Last but not least, for more news, there's lots of tensions between India and Pakistan right now. I just want to call that out. This is making global news right now. But let me just say that it's not really affecting the market too much, as the market remains green, at least for the US markets. Moving forward, for just a couple more things affecting Tesla in the markets. The market's at greed right now. We'll see if this lasts or not, depending on Jerome Powell. Momentum's at extreme fear. It's still slowing down a little bit. It's kind of flat. The put to call option ratio is flat. And the VIX is kind of flat here. So give this some time as we go on. On top of this, when it comes to other pieces of news, we just had earnings from Supermicro and AMD. And then tomorrow we have Uber and Walt Disney announcing their earnings. For Supermicro, I just wanted to say that with the way things are going, they did not give us the best of guidances, because they're expecting their EPS to be between 40 and 50 cents a share, which is below the expectation of 60 cents. We're also expecting their overall quarter that ends in June to see revenue at 5.6 to 6.4 billion. That's below the 6.65 billion expectation. And for the fiscal 2025, revenue is expected to be at 21.8 to 22.6 billion, below the prior expectation of above 23 billion. So not the best of guidances from Supermicro. That's why the share price is down. AMD, however, is doing well. Their earnings are pretty good overall, but what's very good about them is the fact that they want to withstand the deepening trade war between the US and China. They have plans to do that, so that's why the share price is holding up. So anyways, with that being said, what do I see for the share prices for Tesla and others? I'm just going to focus on these, at least from this point on. What do I think is going to happen as time goes on? Well, honestly, guys, if you look at Tesla, we're doing a good job so far at holding above our 50 EMA at 272. I mean, we need that to continue for us to, maintain the stance we're in. So as we hit 272, we're trying to rebound. If we break past 280, we're looking for an attempt to push for 285. So we'll see how that goes. And if we lose 272, we're looking for a dip to much lower levels, such as like 266. So how is this going to move? Well, it's very simple. Tomorrow morning, I wouldn't be surprised if we actually see a small push on Tesla for 285. We might push a little higher, but then I expect some consolidation for the most part. When we get the rate decision, we might see a little pop in the share price before we come back down like this. And then what's going to matter is what Jerome Powell says. If Jerome Powell launches the market up, we want to see Tesla break 292. We're going to be looking for the 300s if that's the case. And if Jerome Powell causes a rug pull, if we lose 272, we're going to be dumping towards 261. So make sure you watch your levels just to be safe. My prediction, once again, is that we push a bit, consolidate. We might pop a bit, then come back down once we get the decision. And then when Jerome Powell gives his speech, he either launches this up to 300 if we break 292, or he's going to cause a big rug pull. So it all depends on him. What do I see? I do see us climbing a bit higher and consolidating for the most part, but Jerome Powell's either going to launch this higher or lower depending on what he says. I don't really know what he's going to say, so there is still some unpredictable aspects of that, so please keep that in mind. So that's what I'm looking for tomorrow, an attempt for 285 and some consolidation. We could go a tiny bit higher as we consolidate, but then I do think that Jerome Powell will either launch this higher or lower. I am hoping we go higher, looking at the fact that Tesla has a nice accumulation here with the quadruple bottom, and that if we could break 292, we're looking for an attempt for the 300s. There is potential in this, but as of right now, we haven't gotten confirmation. Now for SPY, we're looking bullish. As you guys could tell, we're making higher highs and higher lows. If we break 567, we're looking for an attempt to push back up towards 575. And if we end up losing essentially this 555 area, we're looking for a dip back down. So in my opinion, here's what's going to likely happen. I just want to say we're in this range. I think that SPY might push a bit higher for this 565 area, might dip back down to 560 and might consolidate to start things off. We could pop a little bit once we get the rate decision, although we know the Fed is going to keep rates the same. So I do see us trending a little bit higher going into tomorrow, but what matters is what Jerome Powell says. Now, the setup on SPY is a little bit more bullish. As you can tell, we're making higher lows. And then we have this high over here at this 575 area, which would be our target if Jerome Powell causes us to launch higher. So I do think this is a tiny bit more probable, but it's not guaranteed. But just in case, if Jerome Powell causes the rug pull, you want to see us lose 555. If that fails us, I could be looking for 545. So overall, there is some upside potential for 575, and we'll have to see how things end up going. But I do think that there's going to be an attempt to go a bit higher. I do think we push a bit higher tomorrow and consolidate, and then Jerome Powell either launches us above 567 to push for 575, or he causes the rug pull, but there is potential nonetheless. For the QQQ, we have a very, very nice looking accumulation right over here. If we break 490, we're looking for 494. If we end up losing essentially this 478 area, we're looking for a dump back down. So from the way things are going, I just want to mention that there's a very, very good chance we try to push for essentially the 488 area. I do think we go a little bit higher. And then we're going to likely consolidate tomorrow like this, right? There's going to be some consolidation. Could we see a pop when the decision comes out? Maybe. So that's what we're looking for. But then here's the thing. When you look at the chart like this, okay, we're technically bullish. And the full measured move would be that if Jerome Powell does cause us to launch, we're looking for 494 to 500 as our target. If Jerome Powell gives us that launch, there is potential in this setup to go higher, in my opinion, for that 494 to 500 area. But if Jerome Powell gives us the rug pull, you want to see us lose 478. If that fails us, we dump back down to the 460s. I am hoping for upside as the most likely possibility. But we'll see, depending on Jerome Powell. I can't make promises. On the IWM, it's very simple. same thing. I do see us kind of pushing a bit higher, closer to 200 and consolidating. And then Jerome Powell is going to either launch this towards 205 or we get the rug pull back down below 194 to start dumping. So we'll see which way we go. For ES, we're making higher lows right here. If we could break past 5,700, we're looking for an attempt for basically 5,760. And if we end up losing 5,580, we're looking for a dip back down towards 5,500. So, like I said before, we're already up in the pre-market, or not the pre-market, the after hours. And I do think that we could go a little higher like this before we consolidate. But Jerome Powell either launches this up to the 5,700s or he takes us back down to 5,580 to dump back down. So we'll give this some time. But there is some upside potential to retest these highs over here. So please keep that in mind. For NQ, we're also kind of flat right here. We're trading sideways. We're trying to make higher lows by bouncing off these 50 EMAs. But if we break 20,250, we're looking for an attempt to push to 20,500. And if we end up losing 19,900, we're looking for a dip back down to 19,675. So I do think we push a bit higher for 20,200 tomorrow, consolidate around this range. But then Jerome Powell, it's going to be the factor to launch us to 20,500 or take us back down to the low 19,000s. So we'll see how it goes. Bitcoin's looking a bit more bullish. We're doing a good job so far. We could be pushing for essentially 97,250. And I do see us kind of consolidating like this. We'll see if we push higher or not. So give this some time, especially as time goes on for more of these developments. For Tesla, like I said before, I do anticipate some upside as we're trying to hold 272. Could be looking for 285. And we'll see if we break past this or not. So give it some time. But like I said before, we might see a consolidation like this, and we'll see if Jerome Powell launches this above 292 to break out, or if we lose 272 to dump. I'm hoping we get that breakout, but we'll see just to be safe. Now, NVIDIA, technically speaking, it does look a bit more bullish as we're forming a wedge, but nothing is guaranteed with Jerome Powell. So if we end up losing 109 after he gives his speech, we're looking for a dump back down to lower levels. The setup is a bit more bullish, but we need to see if we could break and hold 115 after he gives his speech to push for 120 plus. There is potential for upside, but it depends on Jerome Powell, so keep that in mind. Apple might be retesting 203 tomorrow morning, and then I think we consolidate between 203 and 200 like this. And then Jerome Powell may launch this to 208 or cause the rug pull. We'll see about that. For Netflix, we're looking bullish. We do have this gap to fill. I wouldn't be surprised if we actually try to bounce like this and push higher for an attempt for 1150 is 1150 would be our most likely possibility. But even if we do that, I do think we kind of consolidate first, and then Jerome Powell is going to launch us to about 1200 or back down. So we'll be watching this very closely, but look for a test of 1150. For MSTR, I do anticipate we're going to be testing basically this 400 area, and then I basically see consolidation like this. We'll see if we break out higher or lower, so give this some time. Celsius is trying to push higher, so we'll see how this goes. So I do think this might be pushing for essentially this 36.5 area. But keep in mind that it depends on Jerome Powell. If he launches us, we're going back up to 38, and if not, we could be dipping. But there is going to be a gap up tomorrow. Supermicro is kind of weak after earnings have come out so far. A little bit in the red in the after hours, but I just see consolidation between 28 and 32. Might dip like this and consolidate like this, and we'll see if Jerome Powell helps us balance or not. But I just see some sideways price action for the time being because of weak guidance from earnings. Palantir's on a downtrend. We have to see if we can reclaim 110 to balance. That depends on FOMC. Either we're about to see a retest of 115 or a rug pull. It all depends on that. There's not really much going on with this. Same thing with Rivian. We have a wick here. We'll see if we end up losing 12.9 for the dump or if we end up breaking past 13.5 to push. So I see consolidation. Give it some time. For SoFi, we have a nice accumulation. If we break past 13, we're looking for an attempt for basically 13.25. Now, if we lose 12.4, we're looking for a dip. So I do see some upside potential for essentially 13.2. AMD is a bit in the green in the after hours as they had a good announcement. Decent looking resilience from the company amidst the trade wars that are going on. So I could be seeing a test of 102 and some consolidation for now. I think ARM is going to be testing 125 before it consolidates. And we'll see if it rejects off that depending on Jerome Powell. We'll look for 125 in consolidation. We'll see if we break this or not to push for 130 or not. We'll see about that. Palantir is bullish. We could be looking for an attempt to push towards the 70 area, and we'll see how it goes from there. Coin is looking quite good. If we could hold above 200, we're looking for an attempt to push for basically 203. If we lose 197, 196, we're looking for a dip down, but I do favor 202. Amazon's looking bullish. We could be looking for an attempt to push to 190, and we'll see how that goes. I could be looking for some upside here before it consolidates, so keep that in mind. Meta, As long as we don't lose 581, we're actually favoring a push to 600. We'll see how it goes. If we break this, we'll be going even higher to 605. For MSFT or Microsoft, we're looking for 442 as our target. I do think it goes a little bit higher and it consolidates, but then it depends on Jerome Powell. Same thing with Google, run an uptrend. As long as we don't lose 162, we're favoring a push for 168. So I do think it might go a little bit higher. DJT may consolidate as well between 24 and 23.5. Not really seeing much with that. The VIX is either going to launch above 26 to break out or come back down to fill this gap at 23. So we'll see how that goes. And then the 10-year and dollar are going to be reacting. There is the possibility of an inverse head and shoulders on the dollar, but could this be a trap? Are we about to see the dollar dump or not? That depends on what happens with Jerome Powell's speech. So my analysis is quite simple. I am anticipating some upside tomorrow in the morning. I think we go a little bit higher, and then we see a lot of consolidation. But the real move is going to come once we hear from Jerome Powell and what he has to say. So get ready for his speech at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will talk more about President Trump's announcement maybe in a later video, but for now, the focus is going to be on Jerome Powell for tomorrow. With that being said, I thank you for listening. Please have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow before market open. Tesla to the moon, because the long term is still very bright, despite the short-term volatility and the hardships Tesla's kind of going through for now. I still believe in the long term of Tesla with the robotaxi launch and their developments in FSD, so please keep that in mind. But for now, there's going to be a lot of volatility depending on what happens with the economy and such. All right. Thank you for listening, and peace out.